This is how you cut the thrust. You buy a 1 millimeter oversized bearing because your thrust isn't terrible. You take a millimeter off of this, and then you put your bearing in. Right? It's a millimeter cut off, millimeter oversized thrust, and your bearing won't wiggle. See how it wiggles? This is how you really do it, because you can't use this, because they cut, instead of a millimeter, they cut 1.2 millimeters off of this. And when you cut this, you cut just what it needs, just enough to make it smooth. And then you take your new bearing. Now this is a 2 millimeter oversize, because this bearing has never been cut. So I know if I buy a new one of these, it's going to wiggle just like that one does. So this is a 2, and then you put it on a lathe, and you take a billionth of an inch off at a time. A billionth of an inch. Don't get confident and think, I can take a half off, it'll be fine, because what's going to happen is eventually you're going to get close, and you're going to take a little extra off because you think, yeah, it'll be fine. You're going to put it on, it's going to wiggle. So a billionth of an inch at a time, trial fit, trial fit, trial fit, trial fit. And then inserts. This is a common size of an insert. And it's 14 millimeters in diameter, 13.67. This one is called a time cert. And that's 11.7. That's about 2 millimeters smaller than that. You want to see what 2 millimeters looks like? That's 2 millimeters. That's a lot, isn't it? I mean, a little teeny bit more, a little teeny bit more. Pretty soon you don't have anything left. And then this, pretty sure these are both factory inserts. See, 11.8 time. That's for a late case, a new case. 8 millimeter studs. 11.77 on the time cert. 11.8 on the Volkswagen original late case insert. There's another one. See, they vary a little. See, that was 11.63. I'm pretty sure they're both the same. Well, this is dead here, so this may have been drilled through. I'm not sure. I'm not really positive. Maybe they are different. They seem to have the same pitch. So try to use time certs. And then somebody undeep studded this. Now they put 16 inserts in like this. 16 of these things everywhere. And they put one at the surface here. They undeep studded it. This is a 72 case, according to the engine number. So I took the insert out. See the easy out, how I took the insert out? Never use an easy out unless you know what you're trying to take out is going to come out, because you're going to end up with a broken easy out. Don't break these things. Now this, I knew it would probably come out because it's not, somebody just put it in. But I used this, and I just heated it a little with a acetylene torch, and the thing came right out, and there it is. Then I put this stud in, and I could tell the interference fit was still happening. And these are all interference fit studs. In other words, this thing has to be unscrewed with double nuts, and the hole that's tapped before they put this in is smaller than the diameter of the stud. That's what an interference fit is. All these were all interference fit from the factory before they put these inserts in. So this interference fit is still happening. Now, a long time ago, I was putting an engine together with these things in it. It had inserts everywhere, and I tightened the heads, and this stud just pulled right out with one of these things on it. And that was the end. There was no fixing it. And I thought maybe the reason is because the hole is so big, and this is where you can see that this stud lines up with this area. It's getting pretty thin right here. It's pretty thin, so I thought maybe that's why. And guy I used to work with a long time ago, I said the best thing to do with this stud is don't touch it. Just leave it alone. Don't do anything to it, and just use it as is. Now this one's been in and out. So I think, what if I'm putting the head on and it pulls? Then what would I do? I could take the engine apart and put an insert in it. I'd probably put a time cert in it, because there wouldn't be any other way to deal with it, or one of these monster inserts, which you shouldn't use. But this is a super stud. You see the threads on this end. This is the end that screws into the aluminum. And this is the end where your nut would go on, okay? And these things are to fix these when they strip, when they're original. In other words, if this was no insert, the stud pulls out, case is stripped, this thing will make its own threads. So if this does that, I'm going to put this in it. And I don't think it's going to be a problem. It's got a real good bite. The upper studs seldom strip. And they're made to fix strip threads. So if this strips, that's made to fix it. Now it's kind of sloppy in a sense that, you know, if you have loose heads and like it's 1974 and these things are loose and they're stripped, you put those in. You could go down to the parts store and buy as many as you want. But they worked. And because of the location here and the fact that those things have a better bite than this, that's probably better than the original stud into raw aluminum. Now I got another thing here. You see this head right here? And both of them, they're probably a little bit like that. This was a driver's side head. And you can see it's got stuff here because it was leaking right here. See it? It was leaking combustion byproducts out through here, compression. And most like, you know, like if you check the compression, this thing had 90 pounds on this side. It had about 120 on this side. And so this head was loose. And probably could have gotten it to run by torquing the head. But it wouldn't idle either. And it looked like someone had pulled the intake manifold off to paint it and put it on without changing the gasket. But this is a question I have for all you guys out there that think that you have to have your torque wrench calibrated by NASA to put a Volkswagen engine together. If you've worked on enough of these cars, you're going to find out that pretty much every single one of them does this. Every single one. Let's see this side. This one, probably a little, maybe. It's got a little staining. It's kind of hard to say. So have you ever asked yourself, what can I do to make that not happen? What can I do? Get a better torque wrench? Have it calibrated for every bolt? How about this? You see this wheel right here? Let's just say you're out in the middle of nowhere and you have every tool you need to change that wheel. And you have a wheel and a tire in perfect condition. And these things, they shouldn't even be on the car because they're about an inch wider than the original. And they have spacers. And they're really low on air. But I wouldn't, try to stick to the stock non-snowshoe tire. But anyway, there's 4 bolts there, right? You take them off, you put the wheel on. You don't have a torque wrench. You put them on really tight. You can tell. I mean, if you wanted to, you could probably break these if you had a big enough wrench, right? And, so you know when to stop. And you drive home, you're 10,000 miles from the middle of nowhere, and you get home and the wheel doesn't fall off. But as soon as somebody starts talking about these, everybody gets all concerned that if they don't have a torque wrench, they got to go borrow one from a friend, rent it from, I don't know, O'Reilly or whatever. Then they're wondering if it's not calibrated. Ask yourself, why does this always happen? I'm going to tell you why. Because these things are too loose. Because the book torque is too low. And so I don't know what they're doing at the factory when they put these things together, because they used to stay together pretty good. I mean, I've seen the engines literally, the big bolts that hold the engine cases together just falling off. You could turn them by hand. And Volkswagen put that engine together. And all these old engines, like a 67 Bug in 1974 with the heads falling off, Volkswagen put that engine together too. So maybe these things should be a little tighter. And so when I put these together, when I put the heads on, I do it flat tire style. And flat tire style is no torque wrench. And I put them on until they feel tight. Now, if you ever tuned a guitar, you know that when you tighten up a wire, the guitar string, they stretch. And the bigger ones, they stretch less than the small ones. But the longer something is, the more it's going to stretch. So when I torque these, I can tell you that these things, they snug up a lot faster than these do. And so forget the torque wrench. If you want the thing to stay together and not leak there, like I said, if you take an engine apart, every single time you take it apart and you see stuff there, have you ever thought, what can I do to fix this? What could possibly be the problem? Well, it's not the torque wrench, it's the torque. And so abandon the torque wrench, or maybe tighten them to 30. These are 10s, maybe 30. And the same, especially the later ones with the thin studs, those things stretch. They stretch like a high E. Those things, they just keep going and going. You can feel it when you're doing it. You can feel it. Go ahead, test it if you don't believe me. And these things will stay together a long time, but you got to ignore the torque wrench. You just got to go by feel. And then this, the day that this begins to happen, because every single one will probably eventually do it, but it's going to take a lot longer for this to begin to happen if you do it this way instead of using the torque wrench. I do the same with the case studs, because they go through different depths of material. There's more mass over here than there is over here. And there's more mass over here than there is here. This is weak. So this one's going to want to tighten more. And so that's how I put them on. I put just like I'll use this stuff under the studs. On all this, I use sealant. These on the underneath on the cover plate, I put this on after I put the cover plate on. I use them all. I use it on all of them, all the lower one, even these, because they'll leak between the threads and the nut, and they'll leak between the stud and the hole. And so let me see, what else did I do that I'm not supposed to do? If you have one of these cases and you bolt it together and you look through it, and you can see a gap here where this doesn't touch that. Now, this is what you can do. You put the crank in and the cam probably together and tighten it up, so it's tight, at least 25 pounds, maybe 30. And if the crank still turns around, that means this bearing's not binding on the crank. But you still have a gap here. So if you leave it alone with no gap, what you're going to have is a loss of oil pressure. Because what's going to happen is, see if I got something to point with. The oil comes through the hole on this side of the case, and it feeds this groove on the bearing that's on this side of the case, and the oil goes around like this. It comes through, and it comes through the hole here. See, this one feeds the bearing on the back side, and as it travels, it comes through this hole, and it goes onto the crankshaft. And so if there's a gap here, some of this oil is going to go this way, and it's going to have a lack of oil pressure, and it might show up as a car that idles with the oil light on when the oil's hot. It could even do it when it's cold. Now again, if you bolt this together tight, you have a gap, you know it, you bolt it together tight with the crankshaft in it, and it spins fine, this is what you can do to fix it. You get yourself a flywheel O-ring, okay? And when you put it together, you put that O-ring, piece of it right here, just a short piece. And when you bolt it together, it'll seal it and it won't leak. Now you might think oil in the motor. Type 4 engines, the oil pickup tube's got a rubber O-ring on it. And it's supposed to seal it so that, it won't have a lack of oil pressure. And it's more, efficient sucking as opposed to sucking oil around the pipe. And this is a viable fix. Just pretend they made the case that way on purpose, and they put a piece of rubber there. Then it works, right? That will fix it. And so if you don't have any money and you need a case because it's spreading here and there's a gap, you put it together, you're going to have a lack of oil pressure because the oil is going to go here and just leak right out the crack and fall to the bottom of the engine. So, or this gap. You put a piece of O-ring there, and I promise you it'll fix it and it won't blow up. Type 4s, they're really dumb. The early ones had a pickup tube similar to this. It's removable, and it would suck oil up. Now, on the oil pressure relief valve on all of these cars, you see the relief valve? It goes in this hole right here. And see that hole right there? That's a drain for the oil that goes around the relief valve. And because it's a piston with no piston ring, so oil is going to leak around it. It drains out that hole. It just goes into the bottom of the case. And all Type 4 engines, they have the same thing. It's over here. It's very small though. And then one day they decided, instead of draining it into the bottom of the case, they're going to feed it to the side. I have a video about this. They're going to feed it to the side of this guy, Type 4 engine. It goes in like over here somewhere. And you're going to see this hole that's about that big, and it's oval or shaped like a racetrack. Just two 180s and two straightaways. And so it feeds what would have normally gone into the bottom of the case. It feeds it to the oil pickup tube. And what happens is, what those cars do with those cases, you hit the brakes and the oil light goes on. You go around a turn, the oil light goes on. And the reason is because this massive galley that is substituted for this, and this is plugged up, and this oil is being fed to the pickup tube, they leak at the mating surface in the case. And so what happens is when you go down a hill, the oil goes forward, like you put the brakes on, the oil goes this way, the hole is exposed, the oil pump starts sucking air through it. So if you have one of those Type 4 cases, what you do is, all you got to do is get an early pickup tube, because it's a little longer, and when you slide it in, it'll slide past that inlet hole from the drain for the my electricity just went off. It'll it happens around here a lot. So I guess that's the end.